really kind of came of age politically in West Philadelphia in the mid-90s, right in the middle of what I guess was actually the beginning of the anti-globalization movement, which would then kind of manifest itself in Seattle in '99 and in the global convergences that followed that. It was an interesting place to come of age. It was an interesting place to kind of become politically aware, because it was in the middle of a community of folks who were self-defined as anarchists. But what exactly it meant to be a self-defined anarchist in that context was never something that was at the forefront of public discourse. I mean, there were spaces that called themselves anarchist spaces, which were hugely formative for me. Places like the Wooden Shoe, which is one of the oldest anarchist bookstores in the United States. Places like the A Space, which was a gathering place in West Philadelphia for the anarchist community. And I was tied and tapped into all of that, but never really spending a lot of time thinking about whether or not what I was doing was really anarchist practice. Never really thinking about whether or not I wanted to define myself politically as an anarchist. It was one of those spaces where you were kind of defined as an anarchist by virtue of the work that you were doing, by virtue of the fact that you were participating in this community, by virtue of the fact that you were contributing in some way. And if you were a part of that community and you were giving back to it, then somehow you just kind of knew that, yeah, you were a part of the anarchist world, and that's just kind of how you defined yourself. It wasn't until a number of years later that I actually started to consciously define my politics as anarchist. And part of that happened when I moved to Baltimore and helped to start a family of spaces here that's under the sort of heading of the Red Emma's Project. And Red Emma's, of course, is a reference to Emma Goldman. And Emma Goldman, of course, is probably one of the most well-known anarchist figures from the first half of the 20th century. And so in deciding that we wanted to start Red Emma's, and in deciding that we wanted to very consciously make that link for our project, that was when it kind of came to a head, and I started to say, okay, I need to think about what it means to actually define my politics as anarchist. I need to think about how that fits in with all of the work that I've been doing over the years as an activist, as an organizer, and try and kind of redefine for myself what it means to be an anarchist at, the second half of the 20th century or the beginning of the 21st century. And then a few years after starting Red Emma's, I started to work with another self-defined anarchist project, which is AK Press. And AK Press is probably if not the largest, then one of the largest anarchist publishing houses in the world, and definitely one of the most productive. And it's very explicitly defined as a kind of high-profile anarchist project. And as you sort of become a part of those kinds of projects, as you become a part of a project or a community that's very much dedicated towards trying to bring radical and anarchist politics into the forefront of political discourse, you kind of have to start being a lot tighter about your politics. You have to start being a lot more open about your politics, and you have to kind of be willing to take that label and define it in a way that makes sense to you.